Welcome to the Thrive and Shine podcast on behalf of One Day, Day One Coaching. We're here to talk to real people about real issues in health and fitness and provide enough value that you can either help yourselves or others live healthier and happier lives. Let's get into the episode. Right, welcome back for episode 2. We're going to jump straight into this one, and a little bit of a tasty one actually, Richard. This one, we titled it The Chicken and Egg, and this is really about leading by example. So we've got, on one hand, adults making a change, devoting their time to whatever, sport, fitness, whatever it might be. And on the other hand, we've got children who desperately need us to help and support them. Which one comes first? Do adults need to sort themselves out first before we can really work on the children, or do we work on the children and hope they come through and kind of become the majority rather than the minority? What do you think? Can children be expected to develop these habits if we've got adults walking around not really demonstrating the kind of positive behaviours that we're talking about?
Yeah, I think they can. I think we should expect them to. As an educator, coach, teacher, I think we have that expectation. I'm not just a sports teacher in a school setting as well. I'm a primary teacher, so the expectation is, children will achieve, towards a national curriculum, and I think that's kind of reasonable to expect that children will be able to make progress within fitness, athletics, sport, physical activity, however you want to dress it up. I think children should be able to. However, I'll caveat it by saying maybe it's more difficult if they haven't got excellent examples around them to kind of show them how to go. But I think maybe they haven't got relatives or family members that have got their fitness levels or that sporting ability. Maybe it's not directly to them, but that maybe we can find them role models from within their community, schools, coaching environments that will lead the children on that path to success within physical ability, physical activity. Again, sport, whether it's just being active, doesn't have to be sport based, but I think maybe setting them examples. Easier if it's someone close to you who is out and about and doing stuff and models it, but I think I still think children should be expected to do it and get there. Your side of the coin?
This is where I get cancelled two episodes in, because I do think I've got a perspective on this, and I just caveat this by saying that because I've lived this experience, so I'll talk firsthand, but then now obviously spending time within these sort of demographics and, as we've spoken before about the work that we've done or are doing. So it is really difficult. I had children really young, at 24 years old, we had the first one. So you almost just, you've got that kind of youthful energy still that you had. I was still playing football, as I've already mentioned, twice a week, training twice a week. So if we talk about relative physical condition, it was pretty good, but that's one of those things that I was 24. So you kind of had that, going for you, that you had the youth, but then also playing sport. So I know that that's quite a, specific perspective that I've got. And it's easy for me to say, well, there you go. See, everyone should do that. But actually, my experience, as I kind of spoke about last time, was that changed over time, that I did fall out of, love of sport and whatever else. And there's lots of reasons for that. And that's another episode in itself around, the things that people go through and whatever else. But the simple fact is that, my weight ballooned up. I was not really training whatsoever. And so there you go. I've had kind of both sides of the coin. And I guess that's why we're kind of talking about this now, because the both of us are, I suppose, in a position where we are spending more of our time working on this, whether it's mentally or physically, as in learning, applying, whatever else it is. So I guess now, taking several steps back, I can definitely see the difference in the two and what it makes. And so my general perspective is that I think it's difficult if we are expecting, it's like anything, you know, using teaching as an example. And I know this is probably an easy one to kind of pick on, but, you know, if you've got teachers who uphold the, say, behavior rules really well, and they're all consistent with it, and, you know, you don't go from one classroom to another and you're like, oh, you know, so-and-so lets me take my tie off, or so-and-so lets me chew gum, or whatever it might be, then you know that generally you're going to have consistency across the whole population. The moment you start getting pockets of people not doing certain things, then you start, you know, allowing people to say, well, I'll pick and choose what I do. That might be tenuous, but I think it's the same. I think that if you have, you know, adults who are not leading by example and then trying to, you know, whether it's encouraging or professing, you might be a parent, you might be a teacher, you might be a so-and-so, and you're not, you know, demonstrating consistent behaviors, I'm not really sure what message that sends out. I'm not a psychologist. We haven't canvassed every single person, you know, around, but I just feel like that. I wonder if that does cause some sort of disparity between what we're trying to do and what is actually happening. So, yeah, I think adults do need to lead by example. And I should probably say it here. What we're not saying is, we're not saying everyone has to walk around like bodybuilders and, you know, whatever else, like ripped and whatever. That's not the point. We're just talking about your approach to nutrition, to fitness, to well-being. And if you're showing intent and applying yourself regularly and consistently, then that's going to rub off on the people around you. So why do you think adults, and this is going to be an opinion thing largely, but even through your experience, what kind of things do you think cause, you know, adults to have that apprehension, or just not even think about it, or to put it to one side and decide to, you know, choose to do other things?
It's hard. It's hard to be. I think the key word that comes up is that consistency. And we spoke about it last time about not just flying into something 3 weeks in and then you like stop dead again. It's consistently applying yourself to, you know, doing the right things, eat well, sleep well, move well. You know, it's essentially it, but it's difficult to do. And I think it's even more difficult to do if you're beginning of physical activity wasn't enjoyable. I think we and loads of people in the kind of fitness industry, we all had a really successful time sport, or I would imagine, you know, a huge percentage of people involved in coaching in sport and, you know, at level as you become an adult is because your childhood experiences were good. And so I think kind of the adverse of that is adults that really didn't enjoy sport then have that fear factor around physical activity. They have that fear factor around entering a sporting facility, so they don't want to go. Children are clever, perceptive little things, and they will notice that, you know, dad's not his quite normal self as we drive towards this facility, and that rubs off as well. And I think potentially that's why we called it chicken and egg, which is you know, which is causing which. My guess is that having that fear factor around it rubs off on the children and they don't get that enjoyment. And actually parents are probably quite quick to be like, oh, okay, you've not enjoyed it, let's not go back, and give them that excuse. So maybe there's work to do around building that confidence of parents, you know, what to expect when you take your child to the rugby pitch, the football pitch, the hockey pitch, netball pitch, whatever it may be. You know, what to expect from the coaches. It's different in so many sports as well. And there's so many different environments that you can walk into. You know, I'm confident that I would walk into most environments and, you know, recognize what's good and what's not and be able to make that decision. But, you know, it's something I haven't thought about until we've, you know, began this process, that actually some adults wouldn't necessarily be able to tell. And that would probably be, you know, a big factor. And then, like I say, gives an excuse to the child, and then the child then gives the adult an excuse to remove themselves from that situation, and then back to the beginning where no one's doing those consistent things well, which will, again, have that adverse effect. So, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And to be honest, this is a can of worms, because, as I said already, this is like, there's so vast, as in there's so many things to consider and to take into account. I don't think we'll ever really, we scratch the surface in terms of thinking of what really are the causes. We're just, having a stab at it, I guess. For me, that if you haven't, and so, yeah, going back to that point that you made, which is absolutely right and accurate, that because of having that base, and we kind of spoke about on the last one, that if you've got that, you can kind of, even if you bounce between, you kind of know, what it looks like and what it feels like and all that sort of stuff. And I suppose if you haven't had that, then, and feeding into what you just said, I can get that. And probably in addition to that as well, then I wonder if, like, many people know what it is they are doing that might actually be causing, some of these, we'll call them negative behaviors, to then develop within, say, if they've got children or, just young people, around them. So if you're a teacher and you're in a position of responsibility and all those kind of things, that if you haven't thought about it, then you just might not understand and realize the consequence of that. And again, I know that, some people might be like, oh God, it's not like I don't eat takeaway, have a beer, glass of wine, all of those things. And we're not saying that you can't do that anymore. And this is, you have to live a pious life. That's not what we're talking about. The consistency element is about the majority of the time, right? And all you're showing is that you're able to live a consistent way. And then if you wanted to pick and choose what you do, then that's fine. But not being conscious of that, then, and we could go through them all, like nutrition, not being conscious of the things that you might do. So whether that's offering certain things or not offering them, if you pick and choose what you do, if you prefer certain things over other things, and those things might end up being what you would classically, call bad choices or whatever, then these things start snowballing, right? I guess I was lucky being raised in a very traditional Indian Gujarati household and it was vegetarian as well. And it's just, from day one, that was it. This is the plate and you eat that kind of thing. And I know people from all sorts of cultures that have had similar backgrounds, but that's an interesting thing to me, that where you do find some of these issues around food, around choice, were they even exposed to that kind of spectrum of flavors and tastes from an early age? Maybe not. So yeah, for me, it's in addition to that, around, do we actually know what it is that we're supposed to be doing in order to lead by example? And if the answer is yes, and then you don't, that's a discussion in itself. But if the answer is no, as in I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing, and yet I'm in a position of responsibility in one way, shape or the other, then yeah, then that's a discussion in itself. What kind of things then? And we kind of loosely spoke about this last time, but I think that was more about just in general to get people going. So, this is us now saying then, if we were talking to those adult populations, because in a roundabout way, we're saying, yes, children can be expected to develop these kind of behaviors and habits. But I do think we're probably talking to adults as well to say, how could we help and support? What kind of things would you say would be the kind of key things that you'd be like, do this first, and this will go a long way?
I think it's understanding your own relationship with those key drivers. Food, similarly to yourself, home cooked food when I grew up. But weight has been an issue in my family across, different aunties, cousins, sisters, whoever. It's been a huge factor with people, for a long time. And I grew up in a household where people were aware of like a diet or dieting, but now I look back at it and think no one really knew what they were doing. It was Weight Watchers, Slimming World, eat this, don't eat that, or I can eat as much. What was the next Atkins diet? All those sorts of faddy things that come in. That was my exposure to what we can and can't eat. So, having knowledge of your own relationship to those, like food, and I love eating as well. So I'm very aware of my downfall is I'll just eat for fun. So I know that relationship that, let's pull back on that. Relationship to exercise, understanding that exercise can be any manner of thing, being consistent with it. That's the key thing. Whatever you find you enjoy, you have to do some things that maybe you don't enjoy so much, but do the things you do enjoy consistently and you will have the benefit. And then lots and lots of research and a lot of drive out there at the minute to get people to understand rest and sleep better. I think it's important as well. And then but for me, that first thing would be explore your own sort of relationships with those three key areas, and there's bound to be one that you could easily pinpoint as, actually, I don't do that one particularly well, and start there. For most people, I presume it's going to be that awareness of what you put into your body is going to have an impact at some point. Also, I want to sort of come back to you with the idea of this sort of fitness continuum, which I think we spoke about, but I was playing it over and I was like, we kind of spoke about it without naming it, but you're not all of a sudden, morbidly obese and then all of a sudden super fit. So that continuum of fitness or athletic ability is maybe a good way for people to kind of think about, well, where are they on that continuum and which way are they heading on the continuum? Are they heading further towards that overweight section, or are they helping themselves move down towards the healthy weight, being fit kind of area? That kind of leads me back to asking you, like, how do you see it from that your kind of nutrition point of view, your adult point of view, with that kind of perspective?
Yeah, I think there's loads of interesting things that you just said there around understanding yourself, right? And this is one of the things that pisses me off the most, I think, about the industry. We've already, maybe we mentioned it, maybe we didn't, but we're older than this current crop of social media fitness influencers and whatever they're coming through. Largely, I know I'm making a sweeping statement there, but it seems like the natural progression from back in the day, when you might have graduated uni or went from college, you went onto the gym floor and blah blah blah. They're kind of doing that now straight into online coaching, right? So you're getting a lot of these young men and women out there who are post college, post uni or whatever, straight onto online coaching. They might have had some sporting background and whatever. We've got the wisdom of age, and we've seen a lot of this stuff, through the ages. And I think because of having that perspective, like, one of the things that really stands out to me, and as I said, it kind of frustrates me in a way, is that because everything's so instant now, that people don't really want to spend time thinking about them. So that's boring. Right. If we had clients now and we spent time, talking about some of this stuff and, trying to get them to spend time being reflective or whatever, be like, what? I'm not paying for this. So-and-so can get me 5 kgs off in like 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever, because that's what it seems to be. And yet fundamentally, without that, like, how will you ever be able to overcome some of the greatest challenges? And what you said, so I should clarify, actually, I think I put an awkward smile in right at the wrong time. You were talking about something, obviously deeply emotional to you and your family, and I think I smiled. And the reason for that is because we've spoken about this before. We've got similar kind of backgrounds in that sense. My mum, bless her, I mean, I still go around there for this reason, by the way. I just want to say this, that to be fed. And there'll be times when it's just like, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for like weeks. So we go around there and it will just be food. There's no plated meals. The first time I ever understood, that there was a thing called a plated meal is when I met Lorna, my wife. Like before then, it was just food on the table and you're just eating constantly until you're like, I think I'm done now. But that is relevant to the point because I fundamentally had, an issue. When we say an issue, it was just that I didn't realize what my relationship was with food. I could eat until I was uncomfortably full, which talking now I understand as a qualified nutrition coach, I must have been going so far past, your daily calorie allowance, regularly. But the only thing is that I probably got away with it for quite a while because of how active I was. So say in my early 20s, that's probably where I was getting away with it because I was training 2 or 3 times a week, playing twice a week. And as I said, a fairly decent standard. So in terms of, output, it wasn't just a plod around the park. So it only really caught up with me when that all stopped. And as I mentioned before, it caught up with me in a big way because I was still able to eat, beyond what's actually probably quite normal for an adult male of my age at that time. So, for me, that understanding yourself, relationship with each of those things, my relationship with nutrition was different to my relationship with fitness because I could quite easily, even at that weight, probably go and do something and apply myself to it, whether it was playing badminton, table tennis, whatever, it doesn't matter. I certainly wasn't running around a football pitch at that point, but so for me, I couldn't agree more. I know it's boring, but if we were to say that this one thing will make the biggest difference to you, it would be to start looking at your relationship, breaking down what goes on with nutrition, fitness, and the well-being part, and really thinking about it quite deeply. What do you think? So we're really now talking about, we did kind of disappear down into the what adults can do then. What do we think it's going to look like then in terms of the changes that we can make? If as adults do that, what difference do we think it's going to make to the children that we kind of started talking about?
Yeah, I think children currently get a good deal in what's on offer. I think there's lots out there. There's loads of opportunities for them to go and be involved in all manner of sport, paid for sport. Schools do, the ones that I'm able to get into. Obviously, I've not been to the thousands of schools that there are, but the ones that I've regular contact with are doing a good job on the offer they put out there, extracurricular, curricular. So there's lots of opportunity. There's a huge push currently for inclusive sport. I think This Girl Can is a really good example of something that's worked, and that legacy of the Lionesses winning. And that's ensuring that there's opportunity there, which is great. We've got to make sure that more children get to those events. It's not just the same type of child that's going to all those events. So that inclusivity does need to kind of step up a little bit, so that it's not just the sporty active children, the sporty active families that go and engage with these opportunities. Making sure, and I said it last time, but making sure that the abilities of children is catered for, whether it's in a coaching session, lesson, whatever. So there's those little steps of success, because the knock on is that as those children age, they know they're successful at certain bits of it. They'll continue to do so. So if we get our adults, mobilize those adults that could have a positive influence because they're close to those children, and then we're really drilling down on those fundamental skills for our younger children and develop them into linking movements and becoming more confident, competent performers, then we're going to have that's a very rose-tinted view of it, but we're going to have a more access, more engagement, more able children participating in sport.
Yeah, when you said about mobilizing the adults, and again, I can't help but think that I can understand if somebody's watching or listening that they'll think we're trying to drive people to sport and be sporty like us or someone else. And for me, that's not even the case. We kind of touched on it last time, and definitely kind of underlining in bold this time around, it's not about that. It's not about sporting excellence, is it? I think we just literally just spoke about understanding yourself. And even if all you did now was to really just get yourself active, get yourself prioritizing, on a consistent basis, not 100% perfect, but in terms of your nutrition, making some choices that might start to have an effect on. So if you're a child, or if you're, in school or wherever it might be, like for me, it's in a corporate environment, in any of those kind of situations where it has to start making a difference, even if it rubs off onto other adults first, and then by proxy, children. I absolutely agree with you. I think if more adults were able to mobilize themselves, brilliant word, literally and figuratively, around, just being more active in any of those senses, I think that's going to, make a huge difference. And as I said, it doesn't have to be your own children. It might be just those that look up to you in one way or another. Love it. Short and sharp, but punchy, as always. So we'll be back again next week with another deep dive, but a short one. We're hoping this is going down well, actually. Please, if anyone has watched it, leave comments to say, are you appreciating the fact that we're trying to keep it short on purpose? That is a conscious decision. We could definitely talk for absolutely hours, but we're trying to keep it nice, short and punchy so that people might be able to squeeze it in on a break time, lunchtime, whatever, or just when they're going out for a walk or something like that. But yeah, until next time.
Thank you very much.